So I came across this report. Let's just read it out, ladies and gentlemen. Most of the world's low-income countries are in Africa. In 2023, it is said that the World Bank classified 22 African countries as low income. These 22 countries represent about 41% of all African states. They also make up over 80% of all low-income countries globally. For context, South Asia has improved significantly, reducing its low-income economies from 100% in the 1980s to 13% as of 2023. 23 African countries are classified as lower middle-income economies. 8 African countries are upper middle income, those being Algeria, Botswana, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Libya, Mauritius, Namibia, and South Africa. Seychelles is the only African country classified as a high-income economy. In conclusion, Africa has the lowest income countries of any continent, and so this got me thinking, why is Africa so poor? In my research, I came across this article that did a rough estimate of the mineral wealth potential of what some of these African countries withhold, right? It is said that gold mines from South Africa are estimated to withhold like $2.5 trillion. And from the Democratic Republic of Congo, it is estimated to withhold like $24 trillion. And yet, not even a fraction of that goes back to the country. Even the GDP is not even close to that. And you are asking yourself the same question that I am asking myself. How is that possible? They have all the power, they have all the say. Well, that is not exactly the case, ladies and gentlemen. In order to actually know why poverty exists in Africa, we have to define what poverty is in Africa. According to the World Bank, it states that Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 16% of the world's population, but 67% of the people living in extreme poverty. 2/3 of the world's population in extreme poverty live in Sub-Saharan Africa, rising to 3/4 when including all fragile and conflict-affected countries. 67%, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, a majority of what the world is, man. Like, that is crazy, man. This means that people are surviving on roughly $2 to $3 per day, man. Basically living hand to mouth. We can all agree that Africa is a very rich country, right? We have everything that the West could wish for, from the resources, from the young and skilled workers, growing business sectors. We have very huge biodiversity and natural ecosystems. And so if we have this high accumulation of wealth, why is it that there's no money, basically, right? It's because more money is actually going out of these countries compared to what is coming in. Let me explain. According to this report, this study reported that Africa received about 161.6 billion from outside sources. This includes loans, foreign aids, and money sent home by Africans living abroad, also called remittance. But in the same year, ladies and gentlemen, around $203 billion left Africa. This means that Africa lost about $41.3 billion, man, making the continent, as the report says, a net creditor to the rest of the world, meaning that the world benefits financially from Africa more than Africa benefits from the world, man. It's like you having that girlfriend who you're constantly giving and giving and giving, and whatever she's giving back to you is very minuscule, man. Like, make it make sense, man. Another factor from this research is many multinational companies operating in Africa take profits back to their home countries, basically meaning that there's more foreign entities that are extracting minerals, all that kind of stuff, compared to homegrown or government-based entities, right? This report says that Africa received about $19 billion in aid, right? But about $68 billion lived through capital flight. This is because many of these companies misreport the values of exports or imports so that they can avoid paying taxes in African countries. And of course, this is factored in from corrupt African officials who are in such offices that can see through these finances and all that kind of stuff and actually say, you know what, this is wrong, but instead they want to take their cut and make a leeway for these multinational entities to go away with a lot of money. Another interesting factor is how our African governments ask for more debt. For example, in 2015, there was an accumulation of around $32.8 billion in loans that was given to African governments, but they had to pay $18 billion in debt repayments and interest, man, meaning that there's also a high percentage when it comes to interest rates that were given when it comes to loans, man. With that being the case, we get to see that we cannot sustain ourselves when it comes to paying these loans because of these high interest loans. It's so insane, man. It's so delirious. You're asking for loans from a country that is benefiting highly from you, man. And it's so stupid, man. The way the world works is just insane, man. It's very insane, man. So that is just a part of it. Let us now get into the other interesting factors that I found. I was like, yo, this is crazy, man. You guys are thinking this is a joke, man. Just listen to this, man. Like in 2015 alone, man, African countries exported $232 billion worth of minerals and oil, man. And most of the recurring theme we're seeing is that these multinationals are highly profiting from these resources, right? These foreign corporations often pay very low taxes in African countries. Our government offer tax incentives that further reduce taxes. They also avoid taxes by using tax havens. Another factor this article noted out is that many African tax systems are shaped, or rather were shaped, by external pressure to lower taxes to attract investment, right? How are you being pressured to do your own thing, man, because you need some little stuff and you're not even getting the right amount of money, man? Like, make it make sense, bro. That's why sometimes here we are stupid, man. Honestly, man. This article just proves that our African leaders, the people who should be representing us in these offices, are dumb as fuck, bro. Not gonna lie, bro. Another interesting factor from the article is that we have very limited African ownership when it comes to our own resources. As per the 2015 report, the 500 largest African companies had a combined turnover of $698 billion. So imagine if you do the math, it's not a lot. It's like roughly $1 billion each, right? Another interesting factor is that African governments usually hold small shares of about 5 to 20% in these investments, man. As per the research, it says that 101 companies listed on the London Stock Exchange control about, at the time, $1.5 trillion in African resources in oil, gold, diamonds, coal, platinums. These companies operate in 37 African countries. 59 of them are incorporated in the UK, while 25 are registered in tax havens such as the British Virgin Islands, Guernsey, and Jersey, man. And I'm pretty sure this is just some of the few that they are found. Imagine like from China, from the US. Imagine that, man. That's crazy, man. Another interesting factor is illicit financial flows remove large amounts of money. It is said that around $68 billion, as we said earlier, leaves Africa each year through illicit financial flows. This equals about 6.1% of Africa's total GDP. That's crazy, man. That's a lot of money, man. $68 billion. Do you know what that could do to like our infrastructure, to our health, to a lot of things, man? And that is just looted away like that, man, and no questions asked. How they do this is through a method called misinvoicing, where companies falsify trade values. Multinational companies extract about $48.2 billion annually using this practice. And I also saw another interesting article. It said that Africa was mainly because of the resources that it had, right? It said that from the slave trade until the time it stopped, it is said that an estimated 7.5 trillion pounds or dollars was accumulated, when it came to all this kind of stuff, man. Imagine. Another interesting factor, undervaluing resource deals. Some corporations acquire mining rights far below their real value, often linked to corruption and tax havens. Corruption is a very big thing. I want to come back to it, man. For example, investigation in 5 mining deals in Democratic Republic of Congo found companies paying $1.36 billion less than the market value for the concessions, man. Africa, man. The lost value was almost twice the DRC's annual spending on health and education combined, man. This is why we are poor, man. It's not even them, it's also us, man. Because of the stupid leeways that we let them have in our systems, man. Let us not talk about foreign trade, because we've been talking a lot about foreign entities and all that kind of stuff that are influencing the government. Well, foreign trade is something like that, but it's a bit more deep. So let's get into it, right? According to this article, it says that foreign aid is often presented as a moral commitment from wealthy countries to help poorer nations develop. The narrative is simple. Richer countries transfer money, expertise, and resources to poorer ones so that they can build infrastructure, improve healthcare and education, and stimulate economic growth. In theory, aid acts as a temporary boost that allows countries to overcome structural barriers to development. But when we look closely at how the system actually functions, the picture becomes far more complicated. To begin with, foreign aid rarely operates as a straightforward transfer of resources meant purely for development. Much of the aid given by wealthy countries is tied to political, economic, or strategic interests. Donor governments frequently allocate aid in ways that support their geopolitical priorities, reward allies, or maintain influence in certain regions. This means aid flows are not always directed to the countries that need them most, but the countries that matter most to the donors. Another critical issue is the structure of aid itself. A significant portion of foreign aid does not arrive as unrestricted funds that governments can use freely to build a long-term economic capacity. Instead, aid is often tied to specific projects, conditions, or reforms. Government receiving aid may be required to adopt certain economic policies, restructure the markets, privatize state industries, or reduce public spending. These conditions are typically justified as necessary reforms, but they also reflect the economic ideologies and interests of the institutions and countries providing the aid. I hope we are catching on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to even explain. Aid can also create structural dependence. When a government receives a substantial share of its budget from foreign donors, it may become less accountable to its own citizens. Governments that rely heavily on external funding may focus more on satisfying donor expectations than on building strong domestic institutions or tax systems. Over time, this can weaken the relationship between governments and the populations they govern, because political legitimacy becomes tied to external funding rather than internal economic productivity. The effectiveness of aid is further complicated by the way funds move through multiple layers of international organizations, development agency, consultants, and contractors. By the time aid reaches its intended project, a portion of the original funding may already have been absorbed by administrative costs, salaries, or services provided by companies based in donor countries. In some cases, aid money effectively returns to the economies of the countries that provided it, basically meaning that you are scammed, you are scammed, you are scammed, and you are scammed again. By who? By your government, and by your government again, and by your government again, and by your government again. And what do you get, ladies and gentlemen? Peanuts or nothing. Okay, there is also the issue of policy fragmentation. Many developing countries, in this case African countries, receive aid from dozens of bilateral donors, international organizations, and non-governmental organizations simultaneously. Each donor often has its own priorities, reporting system, and development strategies. Governments must spend time coordinating with multiple agencies instead of focusing entirely on implementing coherent long-term economic policies. This complexity can reduce the overall effectiveness of development programs. Another layer of criticism concerns the broader global economic system in which aid exists. Some analysts argue that the financial flows leaving many developing regions through profit repatriation, tax avoidance, illicit financial flows, and debt payments are far larger than the aid entering them. In this view, aid becomes a relatively small compensatory flow within a global economic structure that allows wealth extraction to continue on a much larger scale, basically meaning that there's more and more scams. To do with matters of corruption, we should not forget about bribes and all that kind of stuff, man. This report from Transparency International really gives out a thought-provoking argument, right? It states that corruption weakens public services, in which we cannot agree with that. It does, man. Let me just show you what Nairobi looks like, man. Downtown Nairobi. Just look at that, man, and look at maybe Nigeria, some states in South Africa, and all that kind of stuff, man. Just look at that, man. Uganda. It explains that we citizens often have to pay bribes to access basic services such as healthcare, education, or government documents, in which I can attest it is true because I had to go through that, man. I had to pay hefty amounts to receive what is rightfully mine. And many others, imagine those who cannot, man. The article goes on to say that the poorest people are twice as likely to pay bribes compared to wealthier citizens. I mean, they do pay, but the status really speaks for themselves. You know what I mean? Institutions meant to fight corruption are often weak or poorly enforced. Corruption in Africa is not only a domestic problem. Many multinational companies participate in bribery to secure business deals, in which is directly linked to what we are talking about, companies that deal with our resources here in Africa, right? Companies may pay bribes to politicians to obtain mining rights, construction contracts, or energy deals. Many countries where these corporations originate do not strongly enforce anti-bribery laws against companies operating abroad because they are also in on the deals. Another interesting factor that this article points out is massive wealth lives Africa illegally, in which we talked about when it came to mining and that kind of stuff. We said that it's roughly about 60-50 billion. Another interesting fact is our political elites also steal public wealth, man. I'm not even gonna read these articles in Kenya. Just take a look at these articles, man, that talk about a lot of money that was meant to help the public is just gone, vanished into thin air, and nobody is gonna investigate about it, man. Another good example is members of ruling families embezzling billions, from state resources, and they moved this money abroad like tax havens, right? To Switzerland. If you know who Mobutu is, he's the second president of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He had a lot of assets outside of Africa, particularly in Switzerland or in Europe, majorly. Goes on to show that this is evident, and it is insane, man. And is one of the few that have been exposed, man, because of course his reign came to an end. But yo, mad fam. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, basically, man. Of course, there's a lot of things that I could talk about, but these are, I believe, one of the major components that are aiding in making Africa remain poor, man, because only the few want to become wealthy and they do not want the rest to benefit from this wealth, man.